as I've searched the Lower Mainland for flight schools, I have now looked towards Abbotsford. And as I talked with people in all of the major Facebook groups and other places, the name Principal Air keeps coming up for some reason. So I decided to talk with a bunch of students and find out what it was all about. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Late Departure. I am Adam, and I'm continuing on my journey to find the best flight school for me so that I can really do well in my pilot career as I try to become a commercial pilot here. And I've been looking all over the place because really it's important to me to find a really good school where they're fair, honest, and overall, they have a good reputation, good instructors, good policies, all those kinds of things. And as you know, I have a whole list of questions that I ask. And in this particular case, I talked with a whole bunch of students who are more than happy to talk about Principal Air. And this group of students was probably a lot more varying in age than any other group of students that I've talked with thus far. And as you know, someone at a little bit of an advanced age myself, it's important for me to know that, people of all ages are being accommodated fairly and properly at these schools. So getting right into it here, in terms of the plane and instructor availability, now Principal Air is a smaller school. They only have about 5 planes. I think they have like 3 152s and a Piper Warrior and a 172 or something to that effect. And I was really concerned about, because it's a small school and because it seems so popular, because I've heard from so many students from there, what the availability was like. And students said that the plane availability was really, really good, that there are no limitations to bookings like there are limitations at other schools, that students were able to book for the entire month very easily, everything they needed to book. And I had some different people telling me different things about how far in advance they could book. And I think that really depends on what time of year you go. But for current students going right now, they were saying that booking times can take anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks in advance, occasionally more than 2 weeks. But if we look at the average, that's actually below average, because most schools, you are looking at least 3 or 4 weeks booking in advance to be able to get in a plane and learn how to fly. And I was surprised to hear about the plane availability, but it looks like they do indeed have planes ready to go, and that they're able to book people in and get them started with flying. So if the bottom line is getting into plane and getting to fly, they look like they're pretty good in that regard. One thing that just kept coming up as I talked with people is they said, if you can't get the booking that you want, you can talk with your instructor. Your instructor can usually try to manage something, and also the staff there can help you as well. Apparently, it's just a small kind of family-run business, and they kept saying the staff is really friendly, that you can talk with them about stuff, and they really try to help you get what you need in terms of your training goals. So next up, of course, I talked about the instructors and if they have a high turnover rate there or not. And of course, this is one of the big things at other schools. You have a lot of instructors who, of course, they want to build up their hours, they want to get into the airlines. And for the most part, people said that the instructors they've had at Principal Air, they've had some pretty consistent instructors. Now, keep in mind, this could be because, it's COVID and, there's not really anywhere for the instructors to go anyways. But as far as I've heard from some of the longer term students, they say that even before COVID, they seem to have had a pretty good time with this. And like I said before, this is something that can usually be attributed to good management. It means that the managers are trying to make sure that they find instructors that go well with their students in terms of the time left they have in training and whatnot. So I was impressed by this. Another thing is they are totally willing to let you switch instructors if you want to switch instructors for a lesson or something like that. Oh, we got a mandatory plane break coming in behind me here. So like I was saying, they have no problem letting you switch around instructors, but the students said they really like the instructors they get put with, and for the most part, they stick with those instructors through to their tests or exams, whatever they have. So that sounds overall pretty good to hear. Now, in terms of mandatory ratings and supplementary material purchases, well, in terms of materials, they said there aren't any mandatory things you have to buy. They, of course, have a package that you can buy for ground school, which most schools do. But in terms of ratings, so One of the students mentioned that they did say that if you're going to continue with this, you might want to try this and this rating, but they said in no way were they ever feeling like they're being forced into doing the ratings or anything like that. So overall, they seem pretty above board and pretty honest. Now, a limitation, of course, is that they only do private pilot's license and commercial pilot license, and I think night ratings. So if you're looking to do more than that, it might mean that you will have to go there and then switch to another school if you want to complete your training at some point. So in terms of paying as you go or paying up front, they do have a system where if you want, you can put some money in and you can use that money to pay for your flying or something like that, but also you can just put a credit card on your account and they can just pay it as you go, which again is pretty standard at most places. Now, in terms of overcharging for ground time, at Principal Air, it seems like they're pretty good with ground time, but they're also pretty exact. So all the students I talked with, they said, if you used a certain amount of ground time, that's the ground time you're charged for. So you're not charged like a mandatory 0.2 hours of ground time every time whether you use it or not, which is something that happened at some of the other schools. They don't have that kind of system, but unlike some of the other schools where the instructors might not charge for ground time or even charge less for ground time than they really should, this isn't something that seems to be happening at Principal Air, and I'm not sure if it's something that's one of their policies or something like that, but yeah, it seems like that's just the way it is. Like if you use some ground time, you're charged for that ground time, but there's no like hidden ground time or anything like that you'll get charged for. In terms of promising flight instructor jobs to prospective students, they don't do anything like that. One of the students said that the flight instructors there are very consistent. They're very friendly and consistent, but the consistency is really important. And that student attributed that to the fact that the owner personally makes sure that every flight instructor adheres to really strict standards and a very same set of standards. So that is a good thing to know. And it's good to know that, whatever instructor you have, that you're going to get the same quality of training there. So in terms of maintenance, the maintenance isn't done on site. It's done somewhere, they said Bakerview maintenance, which is somewhere else, I believe. That being said, it just means that unlike some of the other schools like Pro IFR, where you can actually go in and talk with the mechanics, like Aaron says in pilottraining.ca, he's like, oh, you should go visit the mechanics, bring them some donuts or something like that. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do that, which also means you won't probably have the opportunity to see what's happening in terms of maintenance to the planes, which can be a really valuable experience. And then, of course, the other thing is if maintenance isn't in-house, it can sometimes mean that maintenance is delayed or takes a little bit longer than it might if it were in-house. So that's just something that you have to keep in mind. In terms of the maintenance logs, though, they're very transparent, so you can very easily see what maintenance has been done on the planes. And this, of course, is a really important thing as a flight student to know that the plane you're flying in is going to be safe. That being said, the students also reported that they felt very safe in the planes. They knew that maintenance was being done regularly, that things were all above board. Now, when I talk with students from other schools, there's kind of a rumor going around that Principal Air is a little bolder in terms of weather minima. And this is, of course, one of my new questions, asking about the weather minima. And so most of the students at Principal Air said that this isn't really the case, that the weather minima are pretty much standard like every other flying school. One of the students said, perhaps it is a little bit more lenient than other flight schools, but at the same time, if you can't fly in worse weather, how are you really going to learn? Like if you get stuck in that weather, what are you going to do? I don't know how I feel about that, but I think a lot of flight schools do have weather minima that progresses with your level. So if you're private pilot license or commercial pilot license, multi, with each level, you'll get a different set of weather minima that you're allowed to go into. And maybe they let you go into a little bit worse weather, which can be an educational experience. But again, it's something that I could only confirm this with a few of the students, so take this with a grain of salt. So the last question, and usually what's most important for me, is do they sit down with you and help you map out your goals so you can achieve your goals in aviation? And I got, for the most part, pretty positive responses from this. Most students said that the instructors are really good at helping students, making sure that they reach their goals, make sure that they're able to get bookings the times when they need them, and they're able to do their training in a way that's comfortable for them. For the most part, and this is also kind of a positive, a few of the students were saying that it's really important that you make your own goals and then they can help you get there. And I think this is good. It means that the school isn't saying, well, you should think about this, you should do this, you should do this. Instead, waiting for the students to say, hey, I'm interested in this, can you help me get there? And for the most part, it sounds like Principal Air are really good at that. They're very friendly and very kind, and apparently very helpful at helping students really achieve those goals. And this is from the instructor level all the way up to the management level, which for me is really impressive because that means the whole school really cares as a unit. All right, so that's it about Principal Air. You know, this really came out of nowhere for me. I didn't know anything about Principal Air. I had no idea where they were, what they were, how they were. And so many students came forth to talk about it, and they were so happy to talk about it. And that usually is a good sign when you have a lot of happy students who are attending a school who really like it. And I think it really goes to show that, you know, if a school puts in the work to really accommodate their students, help their students wherever they need it, and make sure that they're getting the training they need in the way that they need it, then, you know, it's going to be a popular school, it's going to be a good school, no matter how small or large the school is. And this is another thing, don't automatically assume that a bigger school is going to give you a better education. That's not always the case. And in many cases, it can just mean that the school is more of a business and not so much as a place where they really care about how you do your training or how well you do in aviation in general. Thank you again for joining me for my late departure. Plane break. I hope this has been helpful for all of you, and as always, I hope that you stay happy, stay healthy, have fun, get out there and learn how to fly, and remember, it's never too late. See you next time.